Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast, I wanted to play some sound from Chase Young because at the end of his press conference, as the Washington football team upset the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was sharing the same room as Alex Smith. And before Alex Smith got to sit down, Chase Young, who had already gotten up, came back into the camera and said, "I love me some 11, you know." And unfortunately, I couldn't find that piece of sound, so I don't have it.
I couldn't understand a word that was said.
Oh, Anthony Lynn, you can understand this. It is time for the NFL Soundoff Week 13 edition. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We will unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to another exciting NFL Soundoff edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, I am PodVader. I'm here with Eagles James. And James, you know, I found that a lot of people don't seem to understand when we call this not a Week 13 recap. And I just want to explain the reason why we call it not a recap is because we're not really recapping the games that occurred over the weekend, especially here since it's Tuesday. No. What we're doing is we're playing some of the best sound from the post-game press conferences and other press conferences that happened during the week that we find because they're funny. And quite honestly, things like Anthony Lynn saying,
I couldn't understand a word that was said.
That's going to end up in an open someday.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's more or less a sound off, but I guess that name didn't stick.
No. So we've got multiple titles for this particular show, and we continue to do this every Tuesday. We'll have some of the best sound, and we will hear a little bit more from Anthony Lynn. We'll also hear from a couple of other coaches that lost over the weekend, but we'll also hear from some players who won over the weekend. So the first part of the show, a little bit somber, and the second part of the show, a little bit happier. How about that? A little theme for this week's show.
Well, I hope the happy part involves Greg Williams getting fired.
It does not, but we will start in New York with Adam Gase. And essentially, the one thing I just want to say before I start playing this, to help you understand, give you more context to the sound, is it's quite clear Adam Gase has no clue what in the world he's doing.
Adam, can you just, I know it was Greg's call, but can you just go over the decision? It looked like it was a pretty heavy blitz on the play where Ruggs ended up scoring a touchdown with no safety help, just man on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, just we were trying to create pressure. You know, he hadn't done well with it all game, so, you know, that's what happened. We had a couple free runners, but we didn't get there.
Is pressure even needed in that situation? All you have to do is stop the play from getting to the end zone. Even a short completion would have been okay.
Yeah, that's what we ended up pressuring.
Have you talked to Greg about, since the game ended, about his thoughts?
I just talked to him.
Did he explain his thought process?
He explained his thought process.
All right, I'm going to pause there because you brought up the fact that Greg Williams has been fired from the New York Jets for one play call. And quite honestly, that's the wrong thing to do because it's clear the Jets want to. Play call. Well, the Jets clearly want to go 0 for the year. Mm-hmm. And firing Greg Williams is only going to give the Jets a chance to ruin that. So I don't understand why they did that. The other thing, and I heard this on Good Morning Football, I believe it was Tom Pelissero, was giving an update on the Greg Williams firing and talked about Marcus May. Marcus May said it was time for, this was Tom Pelissero's quote, it was time for Gase to go. But he meant to say it was time for Greg Williams to go. But really, it was sort of like a non-Freudian slip because it's also time for Adam Gase to go. I mean, Greg Williams is not the one that should be fired here. It's Adam Gase. He has no clue what he's doing. If you don't think that's enough of Adam Gase not knowing what he's doing, wait till you hear his response to how do you handle Darren Waller. All right? Get ready for Darren Waller, who had 200 yards, was just ridiculous in the game.
Okay, now
and what gave you guys so much trouble with Waller?
He's just a really good player. I mean, it's hard for us to match up with him and to get multiple guys on him, through some of the zones, but that's a Carr's guy to begin with. It's really tough to take him completely away. We just, we gave him way too much, though.
All right, he basically just dropped you can't stop Darren Waller. You can only hope to contain him, and you couldn't even do that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But that's not the answer. That's not the answer. A head coach never gives that answer. If Bill Belichick ever gave that answer, I would drop dead of a heart attack.
Oh, it's coming soon. It's coming soon. Belichick's going to drop it. You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. I can't wait.
Belichick is never going to say that.
Oh, yes, he is.
No, yes, he is not. That is not anything a coach says. And not a single coach would say that. The coaches that were fired would never say that. Coaches that are analysts would never say that. And really, I feel like the only reason why Greg Williams was fired was because Rex Ryan went off. Basically, everyone in the press went off on that one play call. And they're like, well, we got to do something. All right, I guess we'll just fire Greg Williams. Greg Williams was the scapegoat here.
Yeah, he may have been a scapegoat, but this is long overdue. Look, I've said a number of weeks ago that, one, Greg Williams should never have a job in this league ever again. I said that before he even got this job as the Jets coordinator.
You have. You've been consistent with that.
Two, we have to also understand the situation that when Gase was hired as the Jets coach, Greg Williams was forced upon him. He didn't have a say in hiring his entire staff. And yet I still don't understand how these things get through, how the owners or whoever's over the general manager of a team tells the new head coach, this guy is going to be your coordinator. Because it almost seems like when you F up, this guy's going to take over the job. The last time we saw this was in Dallas, and it was Jerry Jones, the general manager, who hired Wade Phillips to be the coach and told him, Jason Garrett's going to be your offensive coordinator. I don't care who else you hire, but this guy's going to be your offensive coordinator. And when the team struggled, he fired Phillips, hired Garrett. And they had some moderate success early on. Of course, ultimately, Garrett got fired. But this is just weird to me that you don't let a coach hire his entire staff and you force certain coordinators or position coaches on him. It never turns out well. This is just another case of that. And the Greg Williams point, as far as he should never be coaching again, some idiot head coach next season, and I'm going out right now and calling him an idiot right now because it's the dumbest decision they're going to make. They're going to hire Greg Williams as the defensive coordinator. I won't understand it. No one will. But Greg Williams only has – I won't because two things. One,
so wait.
Hold on. Wait. Before I'm going to let you go. But I just have these final two things. One, Greg Williams only has two defenses that he calls. Engage 8 and fire man. That's it. If you played Madden, you know what I'm talking about. That's all he knows how to call. Engage 8 and fire man. Number two, as much as Greg Williams players like him, and I've heard this from every place that he's coached, the players love him, whether he's been a head coach in Washington, a defensive coordinator in New Orleans, wherever he's been. All his players love him to death. The problem is his defenses never perform well.
Well, never. I wouldn't say never. I would. He is a 500 coach because 50% of the time. 50% of those times, those all-out blitzes work like magic. And the other 50% of the time, you get what happened on Sunday, and you get burned. I think really the difficult thing for Greg Williams on that call was he had an undrafted rookie free agent on the fastest guy on the field in one-on-one coverage.
I mean, should you not know your personnel?
Well, you should, or maybe he did.
And didn't care?
I'm telling you right now, there's no way in the world the Jets want to win. If the Jets win, the Jaguars take the number 1 pick. There's no way the Jets want to win.
I understand. The Jets are still not winning a game this season.
And by the way, the Jaguars are doing their best to not win either because Gardner Minshew's healthy, and oh, by the way, Mike Glennon will remain the starting quarterback.
The starter for the rest of the season, yes. Yes, he
speaking
will.
of that undrafted free agent, Lamar Jackson, by the way, how difficult is it going to be for that young man to try and make a name for himself in the NFL now that he's known for blowing one-on-one coverage against Henry Ruggs, but B, he shares the name with the league MVP. Not this year's league MVP, last year's league MVP.
No.
But in any case, here's what Adam Gase said. I'm just going to play the question. Just Adam Gase has no clue what the hell he's talking about.
Any more for Coach?
Adam, Lamar is a guy, undrafted free agent. He's playing as a rookie. That's a tough spot for him and tough to give up that touchdown. What do you kind of say to him after this one?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about Lamar is he, got to have short-term memory playing that spot. You play the call, you do the best you can on it, and he's just going to have to come back the next week.
I hope Adam Gase has short-term memory and forgets that he has a job, because he doesn't at the end of the season. And the worst part is some media outlet is going to hire him as an analyst. He has no idea what he's talking about. He has no clue what he's talking about. None.
I hope not, because I hope the player on that same staff looks at him and says, "What the hell are you talking about?"
From last week where the press called him out on calling plays, they're like, "What is your offensive coordinator doing?" There were plenty of times where he's just sitting around talking to somebody, not even paying attention to what's going on the field. This time around, where he was caught talking to somebody else at the end of the game, not paying attention to what the call was on the field so that he could overturn the call, which is exactly what the head coach should do in that situation. I can tell you right now, going back to Bill Belichick doesn't make the play calls, but he certainly knows what the play call is, and he will overturn it if he doesn't like it.
Absolutely. And I think that was the most disturbing part that came out of the fallout between what was said after the game was over. Because I caught that from NFL Now yesterday on NFL Network, where at the end of the game, when that call is being made by Greg Williams, both those calls, first they covered deep, they played coverage when Nelson Aguilar was overthrown, and then you come back the next play, and again, you call your engage 8. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, he was talking to another coach and didn't hear the call. So it came off as he was distracted on the sideline, so he didn't know that was the call going in on defense.
I'll give you another one, James, because I've seen this play so many times because so many people railed about the play call. But it wasn't engage 8. There was a middle linebacker who actually hung back in short coverage and waited and went on a delayed blitz to Derek Carr. But there was another
8th man.
But the point is if it was engage 8, he would have gone right off the bat, right out of the gun. He hung back in coverage and delayed his blitz, which made it even worse. That's if he had gone right at the snap, he probably would have made the sack. Actually, the engage 8 probably would have worked if that linebacker had actually blitzed right at the snap instead of delaying his blitz. But instead, he hung back, waited. Carr got a chance to move up into the pocket, made that throw to Henry Ruggs, who burnt the rookie and touchdown. Rest is history. Jets
this
lose
is what I call
again.
most rookie DBs toast.
I just don't understand how Adam Gase has a job. I really don't, because the guy clearly has no clue what he's talking about. And listen, even if I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he does actually know the game of football and how to coach his team, he doesn't know how to handle the press because he's giving them the wrong answers and he's not handling the press the correct way whatsoever. So,
like you said, I believe last season, the reason he still has a job is because of that one season with Peyton Manning in Denver.
While I believe we are fairly piling on Adam Gase, I am going to come to the defense of a coach because I did it last week on our Thursday podcast. And Chargers coach Anthony Lynn, as he put it in his own words, that was the worst game he has ever been a part of this past Sunday. The Patriots shut out the Los Angeles Chargers 45-0 with 2 special teams touchdowns, one on a punt return and the other on a field goal block return for a touchdown.
I just want to know if New England Child Services has been called on the Patriots, because this was abuse in the worst way possible.
And a huge surprise. I had been, at the beginning of the season, this was the defense that I've been talking about at the beginning of the season that hasn't been there for the last few weeks and all of a sudden showed up out of nowhere. It was a huge surprise to me, and I was obviously super excited about it. I just wish I had seen this team play the previous 3 weeks. And by the way, they only lost 1 out of the previous 3-week games. The other 2 games that they won, I was so downtrodden. I was like, that's the ugliest. That I can't even. The game against the Cardinals the previous week, I said the Patriots should not have won. That was the worst win that they possibly could. Now that they got that surprising win, and then this win the way that they did, here's where they go out on Thursday and they end up laying an egg and they lose to the Rams. This is the Patriots 2020. So I'm prepared for it. At least my mind is now in the perfect spot. But back to Anthony Lynn. The whispers are now becoming much louder. Anthony Lynn's going to be gone. He needs to be released from the Chargers. And I said, yeah, but who? Who are you going to get that's going to coach better than Anthony Lynn? And as Neil pointed out on our Thursday podcast, you don't want to have that much turnover with a young quarterback like Justin Herbert. Just look at Sam Darnold. But here we go. Here's Anthony Lynn during his press conference, working with a tough crowd.
Hey, Anthony, after a game like that where you were shut out 45-0, what do you tell your players before games go? How do you kind of get this right for the final stretch?
We signed up to play 16 games, Gilbert, and that's what we expect to do.
And Anthony, have you had any recent conversations with Dean Spanos or John Spanos about your job status?
I talk to Dean all the time. That is out of my control, my job status, but I talk to Dean all the time.
And I guess, how is he feeling? Is he frustrated with the losses?
He's frustrated as hell, just like I am right now. He's very frustrated. When I came here, we felt like the first couple of years we was getting this thing going in the right direction, and the last couple of years it just hadn't been that way. So it's my job to get this back on the right track, and if I'm here, I will.
And Anthony, I just have to be blunt here. I mean, do you expect to be the coach of this team tomorrow?
Yeah, I expect to be the coach of this team tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. At least they were polite in saying, do you expect to have a job tomorrow? Thank you.
Right. Look, I don't like the way that he's getting piled on. He has a rookie quarterback. We've already established that. And I know why the media is doing it. I hate that they're doing it because there's the obvious reason, which you can see. And then for me, there are underlying reasons, which I hate. The main reason is because, again, Herbert playing well this season, playing phenomenal, actually. He looks like a seasoned veteran the way he's been playing this season. And I know that the entire media, especially the local there in LA, is probably hinting at get some hotshot offensive coordinator to take the reins, coach his team, and elevate Herbert's play. But elevate it to where? Herbert's like virtually top 10 in every passing statistic this season.
Yep.
As a rookie, we haven't seen this in a long time. I don't even think Peyton Manning was top 10 in every passing statistic his rookie year. A few, yes. The main ones that count, obviously. But Justin Herbert is top 10 in every passing statistic. So that's not on Lynn. Look, I understand the team as a whole is not playing well. I think almost all but 3 of their games this season have been one-score games. This is just how things fall. They've just been on the wrong end.
And by the way, look at the records. When you talk about those one-score games, look at the records of the teams the next year that have lost a big portion of one-score games. They end up turning those into wins the next season.
The next year. Look, and conversely, 2 years ago, they were 12-4 with Phillip Rivers. And most of those games they won were one-score games. So you have to look at this. Look, one-score games are the ultimate crapshoot. You're either going to balance out, win a lot, and then lose a lot the next year, or vice versa, lose a lot one year and bounce back and win them all next year. I look at the Eagles when Doug Peterson took over the team in 2016. We were 7-9. 10 of those games were one-score games. All right, we lost 8 of them. The next year, we go 13-3 and win a Super Bowl. There were virtually no one-score games. I think there were maybe 5. We won all 5, or we won 4 of the 5. I think the one we lost was Seattle. But still, this is the dichotomy. Since then, we've been losing a lot of one-score games. So, yeah, when you have large success winning one-score games, it's going to come around to where it's going to balance, and then you're going to lose a ton. And right now, they're just in the low point where they're losing a ton of one-score games. You also have to understand that they don't have their entire defensive personnel there. Some guys opted out due to COVID, and some guys have been hurt all year. So he doesn't have his entire defensive personnel. Let's start there. And there are quite a few young players here who are put in situations where they're just making young player mistakes, rookie mistakes, if you will. But the offense is not the issue. So for anyone thinking that Lynn needs to go to get this hot shot coordinator, offense is not an issue. Defense really isn't, and again, not an issue either.
Which hot shot coordinator are you going to get? Eric Bieniemy?
Exactly.
He's not going to a team in the same division.
No,
that's the other thing. You have to remember the Chargers are being compared to the top of the division, which is the Kansas City Chiefs, who are right now the outstanding team of the year. Nobody is comparing to the Kansas City Chiefs last year or this year. So you can forget about trying to you can forget about competing with the Chiefs. That's what you have to build your team to do, is to compete with the Chiefs. But that's going to take years. You're not just going to do that overnight. So you got to give Anthony Lynn more time to do that. So you're not so let's first of all, let's go back to the coaching thing. So you're not going to get Eric Bieniemy, who's the number one choice on everyone's list. So who's next? There's reports out there because Boomer Esiason on his radio show said that Bill Cowher looks like he's getting ready to come back. But Bill Cowher,
no,
according to Boomer, is leaning towards the Jets, which by the way would be fascinating.
Hilarious.
By the way, Bill Cowher, Bill Belichick, they hate each other. The fact that he would go to the Jets, that would just solidify that would bring that rivalry back up. That's for sure. That would be fantastic. I would love to hate the Jets properly for once, instead of just feeling sorry for them. But so you're not going to get Bill Cowher. So you're not getting that big name. Okay. Our Buffalo Bills superfan, Rob, has mentioned that Brian Daboll's name has come up on a number of conversations about head coaching positions because of the job he's done with Josh Allen. And deservedly so. He's probably going to get a head coaching job. But is Brian Daboll really going to be the savior of the LA Chargers? I don't think so. The only thing that I could see here, and we're going to get to this coach next, is if you took a retread coach that gets fired this season, and I'm speaking specifically of Matt Nagy of the Chicago Bears. That would be the only maybe I would take. But again, do I see Matt Nagy being that big of an upgrade over Anthony Lynn and his coaching staff? No. Now,
and again, he probably won't go to the Chargers because he came from Andy Reid.
Why would Matt Nagy not go to the Chargers?
He's an Andy Reid disciple.
Oh, I don't think that would stop him from taking the Chargers job at this point. He's been away from Andy Reid for how many years
now? 3.
Well, that's more than enough. But I think that would be exactly who you'd want to put in that position to compete against the Chiefs, because now you have a guy who knows exactly how Andy Reid's thinking. So you can design a defense to maybe go up against the Chiefs more than just we need a bunch of fast guys to compete against their fast guys, which I think is really what
this defense from 3-4 to 4-3.
Well, let's put it this way. That's a conversation for the offseason. I want to say one more thing about Anthony Lynn, and this would be to his detriment. And I brought it up on the Thursday podcast last week about Anthony Lynn, and that's his evaluation of talent on his own football team. And I brought up the fact that, Justin Herbert, as you mentioned, is top 10, but he was not going to be the starter and wasn't going to be the starter this year at all if it wasn't for an errant doctor, some quack on the sideline puncturing Tyrod Taylor's lung, right? If that doesn't happen, we don't see a top 10 quarterback with the LA Chargers. I mean, maybe we've seen him by now, but I mean, does he put up the same numbers? I don't know.
Right.
So that's one. The other thing, and they asked him about this during the press conference, and I didn't cut this, but he apparently started another tackle during this particular game because he wanted to see how he would do. He's like, I already know what I have in the other tackle. I don't know what I had in this tackle, so I needed to see him in a game. And I kind of shook my head as he said it, and I was like, no.
Yeah, you shouldn't have thrown that out there. Say the guy was injured or something.
You just need to know. Like, you are the head coach. You need to know what your team can do. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to throw them out there and play them because I don't know what I have in them. No. Even if that's what you were doing, you don't say that out loud. You certainly don't tell the press that. So that would be the one thing to Anthony Lynn's detriment, is that I don't feel he's that great an evaluator of talent. But I think you have a team, and as you mentioned, Derwin James has been injured. That's not on Anthony Lynn.
No.
That said, Derwin James has now been injured for 2 years. You may need to think of somebody other than Derwin. Derwin James isn't necessarily going to be your savior when he comes back.
And Bosa's been in and out of the lineup all season.
So that would be another thing to be considerate of, is understand that Derwin James might come back, but he's not necessarily going to be Derwin James, the superstar that he showed before his injuries. Now he's had 2 years of injuries.
Even if Derwin James is just a solid, consummate professional, it'd still be an upgrade for whoever's out there right now.
That is true. All right, let's go to Chicago, because Chicago was not being easy on Matt Nagy at all either. He had a tough crowd to deal with too.
Man, why is this team falling apart the last 2 seasons?
Pause. I mean, talk about
right out the gate.
Talk about just being blunt. Why is this team falling apart the past 2 seasons?
Oh my gosh.
Man, why is this team falling apart the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that for us, all I know about is who our players are as people and how they handle this stuff. And it's not because of a want. I know that, and so it's just difficult, man. This is the life in sports, and it's not easy. It's not fun when you lose.
I worked with someone once back in the day, the 4-Letter Network, who said, if your head coach in a press conference ever says the words, I don't know, you should be fired on the spot.
Oh, gosh. So it's only a matter of time then.
Matt Nagy, you said, I don't know. You never, ever do you say, I don't know. I mean, I will give Gase some credit. He's never said, I don't know. He's come close, but he's never said, I don't know. He's come up with an answer that's just been ridiculous and doesn't make any sense. Don't say, I don't know. But again, how are you supposed to deal with a question that's just so blunt? Why is this team falling apart? I mean, the answer should be, this team hasn't fallen apart. This team comes together and fights together like a family every day. And no, we don't win every game, but we go out there and we certainly try. And I see an effort, and these guys are improving. And that's the way you answer that question. Again, all of you teams out there looking for general managers, I am available. You can find me on LinkedIn, PodVader. My DMs are open on Twitter at The Real PodVader. Nextfanup@gmail.com. You can just email me directly. I will gladly talk to you about your openings for all of these positions because I can help you. You should be behind this, James. You should stop. You should get behind the PodVader for general manager of your team. Not necessarily your team, but for your team.
I don't know. Am I being brought on as president of operations?
I can make that happen if I get the job.
Well,
yeah, see?
GM. Yeah.
There you go. We're all behind it now. All right. So Matt Nagy dealing with the issues in Chicago, the Chicago press not being very kind to him. I mean, quite honestly, to me, this comes down to you pulled Trubisky for Foles and you didn't improve your team.
No.
And that's really what it comes down to for me is you pulled Trubisky for Foles. You didn't improve your team. Trubisky has come in and now his progression has sort of stalled and he's up and down and left and right. And he's not really the answer either. And now you have a problem because it's not like you can pull Trubisky and put Foles back in because what is that going to do?
Well, one, Foles is still hurt, so there's that. I forget who the third string, technically now backup quarterback is because Foles wasn't dressed last week. Yes, Nagy deserves some of the blame because of his coaching. But I still want to go back and blame the general manager on draft day 3 years ago who – you know where I'm going with this. And, yeah, I'm piling on because we talk about it almost every single week. Who in their infinite wisdom looks at the available quarterbacks and says, I like this Mitchell Trubisky guy. Let's move up from 3 to 2 and take him and give up half our draft. Meanwhile, even if Patrick Mahomes wasn't on everybody's radar, Deshaun Watson is still there, who we just saw play 2 back-to-back national championship games and deemed the best athlete on the field, the best football player on the field against Alabama, who we always call a pro football factory.
I remember that draft. We were all like, oh, they moved up to get Watson. What?
Yes.
They took Trubisky? So, yeah, it was, and they went all in on Trubisky. And really, that was their mistake. The mistake was going.
Yes, it was.
Was sticking. Well, the mistake was this particular season saying that we are all in on Trubisky and starting with Trubisky. If you weren't all in on Trubisky this season, you should have started with Foles right off the bat. And then moved on from Trubisky and admitted that you made that mistake. If you had done that, you probably would have gotten a pass. Probably not. Knowing the way that people are like, what have you done for me lately? But if you had just started with Foles and moved on from Trubisky, you get a little bit of a pass. You get another year. Foles doesn't end up being the answer. Then you try and find somebody else. But clearly the fault here is that you stuck with Trubisky for too long. And now you've made your bed. And unfortunately, it's going to cost you your job.
Yep. And look, I still maintain it shouldn't cost Nagy his job because he was hired after Trubisky was drafted. And I get it. He was the OC in Kansas City. He worked with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. And, there was something there. It was like, hey, we can get this guy to groom our young quarterback who should be up and coming. This felt like when they hired Nagy, it was almost as if we have to hire the best offensive coordinator out there to justify drafting Mitchell Trubisky over Mahomes and Watson. Because unfortunately for Trubisky, he's going to be compared to Mahomes and Watson for his entire career. There's not going to be any way around this.
Right.
And it's going to make Bears fans sick every time they see Mahomes or Watson either setting some type of passing record or playing in the playoffs. And then just wondering what could have been. Either of those guys could have been our quarterback.
Well, again, I will look back
at number 3, though, but not at number 3.
I will look
at the quarterback.
I will look back at that draft, and I will give them a pass for Mahomes because there were very few people that were on Mahomes.
Very few.
But the opinion on Mahomes was split. A lot of people were like, he's going to make these throws and he's not going to get away with it in the NFL. And by the way, this just in, he's getting away with it in the NFL.
Getting away with all of it.
It's just mind-boggling and amazing to watch. But
Deshaun Watson was by far
Deshaun Watson, you don't get a pass for passing on Deshaun Watson. That
the highest rated quarterback, hell, the highest rated player in the league. There was still, everyone knew he was going top 3. It was just a matter of which team is jumping up into the top 3 to get him because you can't let him slide. The Bears would have gotten Watson at 3.
Yeah, the Bears screwed up. They did.
So again,
I'll go back to Matt Nagy. So when we talk about all of these coaches that are on the hot seat, that are getting fired, that have already been fired, and now there's going to be a hiring process again, which, by the way, the NFL has released their rules for the hiring process, where you're not going to be able to do in-person interviews during the week during the bye week in the playoffs. You're only going to be able to do Zoom calls with those coaches. And then even when you do get a chance to finally meet the coach in person, they're asking that the interviews only be like a half an hour in length so that they shorten the window. I feel like that's a little too much, quite honestly. Really, especially if the person's already in the league and they're already being tested, then why you're not going to be spreading COVID if you've been tested and you're negative. There's already been a couple of outbreaks already, and it's only Tuesday. Well, yes, there's going to be COVID updates on Thursday for sure. But, and honestly, the Thursday game is in question as to if they're going to actually play in Los Angeles or if they're going to have to play somewhere else based on the COVID rules that are going on in California. Yep. We'll save all of that for another conversation. But I do believe Matt Nagy is one of the coaches that if he does get fired, he's going to get a job next season with another team. Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be head coach. I think it's going to be somebody's OC. Oh, no, I think he'll be he's the one head coach that will get fired and will be a head coach at another team. I think there'll be other like Anthony Lynn. If he ends up being fired, Anthony Lynn will end up being an offensive coordinator. He will not be, Lynn is a defensive specialist. Yeah. Anthony Lynn will end up becoming a coordinator and not a head coach at another team. Or he'll end up on television, quite honestly. I wouldn't mind Anthony Lynn on television. He has a nice presence about him. And I like the white in his beard. Oh, bad. Let's talk a little bit. I don't want to see Lynn get fired. I don't want to see Nagy get fired because, again, my final take on this one, this is not all on Nagy. Play on the field has been bad, yes, but that's because he has ineptness at quarterback. In total, it's not just Trubisky, it's Foles as well. But again, this wasn't – I don't think he had full say on this quarterback situation. Again, he was hired after Trubisky was drafted, and Nick Foles was kind of just thrown there because of hype. So speaking of hype, let's talk a little bit about our good friends over at thrivefantasy.com. They are offering you up to a $50 bonus on your first deposit with them, thrivefantasy.com, or you download the app from the App Store or Play Store. You use the promo code NEXTFANUP when you sign up. And if you're putting in your first deposit of $20 or more, you're going to receive an instant bonus up to $50. Hey, that's not bad. I could use the free $50, especially when it comes to fantasy, as my DFS plays the last couple of weeks have been terrible. But in this case, this is what Thrive Fantasy does, because they invite you to hashtag prop up this season. Basically, each prop fantasy point total associated with the over or under based on the likelihood to occur. The more points a selection is worth, the riskier it is, and you rack up the most points to win a share of the prize pool. And there are guarantees for how much in prizes you can get every week. So all you need to do, and by the way, you can do this for not just the NFL. They have NBA, MLB, PGA, esports. So go ahead, sign up at thrivefantasy.com or download the app on the App Store or Play Store. Use the promo code NEXTFANUP to get that instant bonus on your first deposit of $20 or more. All right. The somber stuff is all done. It's time to get happy. If I had the ability, I would have played a little Pharrell Williams right here, but we can't do that. Let's talk Cleveland Browns, your favorite team, James.
No, they're not.
Eagles James. Baker Mayfield. No. Baker Mayfield ended up catching a nice pass on a reverse play to Jarvis Landry. And was asked about it during his press conference.
Yeah, can you talk about the toe tap, how much you worked at that to make that catch?
Every morning, wake up, toe tap, get out of bed before I get into the bathroom. So before I brush my teeth, I toe tap.
Toe tap. By the way, I want to see that in a Progressive commercial. I want to see Baker wake up, toe tap, walk to the bathroom, toe tap.
Oh gosh,
Would that be a great addition to those Progressive commercials?
No.
Oh, be great.
No.
I love the latest one. He's out on the field, he's throwing footballs, and the grounds guy comes out and goes, "Hey, by the way, they're going to resod the field." He's like, "We have guests? Anybody put out the cheese? Anybody got some candles? It stinks in here." Oh, that's fantastic. Those Progressive commercials are great. The fact that Baker Mayfield lives in the stadium. That's pretty funny.
Oh, he should.
By the way, Baker was also asked, what's different this year, Baker?
What's different about you now as opposed to a month ago, last year, whatever? Is it something looks different? What's different?
Whenever I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? And if they would, then I don't do that.
The Office, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, man.
Would an idiot do that? No, then I'm not going to do that. Now, does an idiot toe tap?
Humility and humbleness is not worn on him yet.
Does an idiot toe tap out of bed? They get out of bed and do the toe tap. Because quite honestly, I don't see a reason that I need to toe tap when I get out of bed. Just saying. Yes. Baker Mayfield. By the way, the other thing, you might have heard, there was a question being asked of Jarvis Landry. What are the Browns doing? You're going to tell me that they don't have any other room to put all of their press conferences in at once? They have to put them all in the same room? It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Spread them out or time them so that Jarvis Landry comes into the room after Baker Mayfield's done. I mean, these press conferences are only 10, 15 minutes long at the most. They're never, I rarely see a 15-minute one. And most of them are usually like 5, 8 minutes long. Baker's usually goes about 12. He's averaging. Just saying. I've seen enough of these press conferences now that I've got the timing down. I can tell watching on the video, like if they're where good sound is, because I can see the reaction on the person's face when they're talking, unless they're wearing a mask. That's the one downside to them wearing masks during the press conferences. I can't tell where the good sound is. I got to listen to the entire press conference. First world problems, I know. This is the pain I put myself through for you out there, everybody. Just want to let you know.
Do you need a hug? Sounds like you need a hug.
Well, if I'm not going to get a hug, then maybe Gunnar Olszewski of my New England Patriots could get a hug.
I can't wait to even get off here so I can go talk to him in the locker room and just give him a big hug. So
that's Damien.
I told him. I told you I was about to come give him a hug. So here we are.
So Damien Harris, running back, says, "I was so happy for him. I wanted to give him a hug," and then shows up during Gunnar Olszewski's press conference to give him a hug. Oh, that's pretty funny.
Awesomeness.
Might have been more of a visual thing than an audio thing. I don't know, but I enjoyed it. Of course, I enjoyed the game too, but that's just me.
Yeah. Fans in LA, not so much.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers got to a new milestone. What a surprise! 400 touchdowns. He's the fastest to do it. And what's most impressive to me about being the fastest to 400 touchdown passes in NFL history is that he missed a couple of years. He sat on the bench waiting for Brett Favre to leave.
He also missed a couple of years due to injury.
So that's quite impressive. Now I wonder, I don't know how many. Well, Favre and not Favre, Breeze and Brady are going back and forth for the touchdown lead, and Brady now obviously has the lead because Breeze has been hurt for the last couple games. But they're at 540, right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Favre was asked about his milestone touchdown balls. Where are they?
Hey, Aaron. James Jones said he chucked the 100th one into the stands in Atlanta. I think Devontae said you let him keep 200 because that was his first. The 300 was the shovel pass to Ty Montgomery, and I just watched it. He looks like he gave you the ball, and then you flicked it away. Do you not have that one? Do you know what happened to that one?
I don't. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that one went. I don't remember if it got painted up. I felt like because of the score in the game, I felt like we'd kind of get blown out. That it maybe wasn't as special. The other two were in wins, I believe. Was Atlanta a win? Yeah. So those a little more meaningful. I am, proud, obviously, of the 400s. I'm glad I got the ball. I'm going to hold on to that one. Now, let's see if I can get to 500 before I throw 100 picks, maybe.
Interesting. Can he get to 500 without throwing 100 interceptions first? By the way, he is on pace to actually do that, to throw 500 touchdowns before he throws 100 picks.
How many picks does he have so far?
I knew you were going to ask me that question, and for some reason, I am not prepared with an answer for you. I also, while I'm looking that up, though, I mean, just the fact that the man only keeps the balls in games that he wins. Like, I know I made 300 touchdowns, which is a pretty impressive feat, but we lost and we got blown out, so I don't want anything to do with this ball.
Understandable. That speaks to his personality. It's pretty much how he's always been, But I don't see why. Let's put it this way. It was a foregone conclusion that he was going to reach 400 in Sunday's game because look at who they were playing. It's also not a shock that Devontae Adams ended up catching the ball because, look at how they were covering him. And, I think the only shock was that the game was actually close at one point early in the fourth quarter before, a 77-yard touchdown run. But outside of that, it's Aaron Rodgers. These things, they're going to happen. I still believe for his career, for any quarterback's career, he still has the highest touchdown to interception ratio of all time. And
88 interceptions for his career.
88 interceptions. And he just threw 400.
So here's this year's stats. All right, he's at 36-4, 36 touchdowns, 4 interceptions at the 3-quarter mark. So if you say he gets 3 touchdowns a game, which, by the way, I don't think he's going to throw 3 touchdowns a game, but you give him maybe 1 interception left on the season, that would be 48-5, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'd be at 412-89. Can he get away with, let's say, averaging 35-5? How long until he wouldn't make 500 before he got to 100 interceptions on that pace?
Nah. Because of the pace of this year, it looks like he can do it. But overall, for his career, I don't think he's going to hit 500 before he gets 100 interceptions. Just because of stupid things. His best season, he only threw, 2 picks?
Why, again, are you asking these difficult questions? Fortunately, I'm on profootballreference.com, so I can look at this rather quickly. Let's see. I think
his best season, he only threw 2 interceptions, maybe 3.
Career by year.
But, he'd have to go on like a 32 clip.
He only threw 2 picks in 2018.
And he's only done that once.
Yes. Then he threw 4 in 2019, and he's only thrown 4 so far this season.
So it's possible, provided he only throws 4 picks.
I will say this. His worst years was his quote unquote rookie year. The first year he started, he threw 13 interceptions. And then 2 years later in 2010, he threw 11 interceptions, but he's never thrown for double-digit interceptions since.
Since then, right?
His highest since 2010 was 8, and he did that twice in 2012 and in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 or less interceptions a year. He's still going to hit 100 before he gets to 500, but that's still a pretty impressive mark.
Yeah, to be single digits for basically the entirety of your career, year in and year out, save two. But, I mean, yeah, it's possible. I don't think it's highly likely.
I mean, only Drew Bledsoe would have a better career.
Ladies and gentlemen, the drugs have finally affected PodVader.
Actually, since I'm here. Oh God, no! Drew Bledsoe loved to throw interceptions. What am I talking about? You're right. What kind of drugs was I talking about? Oh my gosh!
For Drew Bledsoe, find a season where he only threw single-digit interceptions, and then maybe we can have a conversation.
2001, because he only played in 2 games.
Oh, wow.
And then 2006, because he only played in 6. And then Tony Romo took the job from him. His best year, the lowest amount of interceptions he threw was 12, and that was with the Buffalo Bills. Unfortunately, he threw only 11 touchdowns that season. That was his second year with the Bills. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, it wasn't the 21 or he threw in 1999 or the 27 he threw in 1994, which was his sophomore season.
Mm-hmm.
Still, I just want to point out Drew Bledsoe, the greatest Patriots quarterback of all time. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, but Drew Bledsoe, the greatest Patriots quarterback of all time. There is a difference. Understand it.
Yeah, what else have we got?
That's it. We've reached the end of this week's NFL Soundoff. If you ever hear anything out there in the wild and you would love for us to reference it, talk about it on this particular podcast, you can always send us an email, nextfanup@gmail.com. MP3s or waves or even videos, I can convert them to what I need them to be. Nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast. Or Facebook.com/NFU podcast. Great ways to get in touch with us. If you're a NFL team and you're looking for a general manager, at the real PodVader on Twitter, my DMs are open. You can use the same email address, nextfanup@gmail.com, or you can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm available on LinkedIn, PodVader on LinkedIn too. So I'm very easy to find. I'm right here. I can help you, can help your coaches. I can help mold them so that they talk to the media in the proper way. They don't answer with an I don't know, or they don't give a nonsensical football answer that makes literally no sense and makes your coach look like an idiot. Not saying that he is an idiot. I'm saying he looks like an idiot.
No.
Sounds like an idiot.
He is an idiot.
Would an idiot do that? Then I don't do that. That should be his motto. Just like Baker Mayfield.
Well, they fired one idiot in New York. They'll soon fire another.
Oh boy! All right. Well, for James. By the way, there's a game this evening. James, will another NFC East team pull off the upset?
Oh God, I hope not.
I believe I said that there's a possibility that they could, but I don't think I actually pulled the trigger on that one.
You were tempted.
I was tempted, but no, I did go with the Baltimore Ravens. They are getting all their guys back from the COVID list. So I do think, with a fully healthy squad, the Ravens should handle the Dallas Cowboys. That should not be a problem for them.
Look, a fully healthy backfield should give Dallas problems.
I will be back again tomorrow, and it will be to give you a preview of the LA Rams versus the New England Patriots. I might be able to convince Patrick to come on with me. I don't know where Jared is. I've already reached out to Jared, our Rams super fan. He did not respond. So I'm currently without a Rams super fan. So I'm going to reach out to Patrick, see if I can get Patrick on here, give you another Patriots perspective.
Patriots today.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a Patriots game. It's the time to bring out the Patriots. We'll go all Patriots.
Please find somebody to support the Rams.
I will tell you right now, Patrick has a much different perspective on the Patriots than I do. He's always had a much different perspective on the Patriots than I do. Patriots Rams, we'll give you that preview sometime tomorrow. And then, of course, James will be back with me on Thursday, where we will most likely have Neil, probably Doc, and maybe another. Who knows? It's a party always on Thursdays as we preview Week 14 in the NFL season. We're past the 3-quarter pole. This is where all the games really count and matter. By the way, there were clinching scenarios. The NFL sent their press release about clinching scenarios when I hit publish on the podcast. It's always the case. The NFL breaking news as soon as I hit publish on a podcast.
Well,
always
2
happen.
teams did clinch on Sunday, so congratulations to the Chiefs and the Saints. You're in the playoffs.
There you go. So for James, for all the super fans, for all of you listening, there you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.